Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, June 14th. If you're joining us for the first time, I am a sales coach and trainer, and I work with both individuals and organizations internationally to help them do one thing and one thing only: get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I founded the Sales Pro Network as a place where salespeople can come to hang out, network with each other, learn from each other, ask questions, and get advice and coaching. I've invited a lot of my competitors on here, and we're always happy to help. And if you've joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m., we either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. Now, normally, my guest only talks about sales, but today we have something very special. I'm going to bring him to the stage. John Conrath. It looks like he stepped away for just a second. John Conrath is the managing partner at Portfolio Medics, which is a boutique investment advisory firm with a unique story. There he is. And he has what he calls a passion project. John's passion project is that he's one of the founders and the managing partner of Floyd Nation, a Pink Floyd tribute band that strives to carefully recreate not just the music, but the feel of the original band Pink Floyd and of a Pink Floyd show. And I'm actually old enough to have attended a good number of Pink Floyd concerts in my youth. The shows were amazing, and not just because of the music, but we'll let John talk about that later on. Just in case anybody who's joining us or listening later on is not aware, Pink Floyd was a progressive rock band formed in 1965. They produced a great deal of music, and for iconic albums, certainly, that before they broke up in either 1981 or 1985, depending on how you define their breakup. Even if you're not familiar with the band, you've probably at least seen their album cover for their iconic album, The Dark Side of the Moon. It's a black album cover with a triangle on it with a prism coming out of it that looks like a rainbow. Dark Side of the Moon remained on the Billboard Top 200 for an incredible 736 weeks. I personally consider it, as a fan of the music, the greatest recording ever made. And with that, please welcome today's guest, John Conrath. Good morning, John.
Hey, fashionably late. I get that, right? How are you?
I'm very excited to talk to you, John. I really am. Full disclosure, I actually know John. Besides this interview, John has been a client of mine, and I've been a fan of his band for quite a while. John, before we get into the questions that I have for you both about investment advisory and selling and the business of Pink Floyd, can you just give us a little bit about your background, the 2 or 3 minute of your version of your background?
50 years old, married 30 years, live on a little island in Southwest Florida. I've got a beard. People think I'm a ZZ Top. I'm not. And that's pretty much me. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about sales before I pick your brain about Pink Floyd and the business of tributes band live touring. What makes Portfolio Medics, your company, what makes it unique as an investment advisory firm? And what's your personal philosophy when it comes to selling portfolio management?
Portfolio Medics is an investment advisory firm. I guess the unique side of it is, when I started off in the business back in the early 90s, I felt like I was stuck in a box, everybody else's box. The reason I started Portfolio Medics is because I really wanted freedom. I wanted choice. I wanted flexibility, not just for myself, but for the customers and the clients and the representatives that I work with. That's really the big difference between, what the industry does and what Portfolio Medics is. It's really about freedom and choice and flexibility.
So when you say flexibility, I mean, I have an investment advisor, and if I knew you before I chose mine, you'd be mine. But what makes it more flexible?
There's a whole world. When you work for a certain company, you're typically a representative of that company. Being independent in anything, for instance, if you were a sales coach for XYZ company, you would be presenting their product, their philosophy, but because you're independent, Jeff, you can say what the heck you want to say, when you want to say it, and how you want to say it. And honestly, that's really it. If you're a tire salesman and you're selling tires for Firestone, that's the only brand you're selling. That's the flavor. If you're an ice cream salesman, you work for an ice cream company that specializes in vanilla ice cream cones, that's what you're going to sell. That's it. So being independent and having the flexibility says to me, I can truly say to a customer, and we can all say it at the firm, that it's them and us against the world. The world's our oyster. We have choice, we have selection, we have freedom to do whatever we want, however we want to do it, without the constraints of a company over top of us. Hence the beard. If I try to get a job at a big wirehouse firm, most of them have a problem with this, right? Just think about that the right way. So freedom to me is that freedom of being who I am and how I want to present myself to the public.
Got it. So if I'm hearing you right, it's much like an insurance broker as opposed to an insurance agent. An insurance broker can offer what's really right for their client rather than just selling the one thing, the Allstate or the State Farm.
Yeah, that's a way to look at it for sure. Yeah.
Got it. And you have,
I like more about vanilla ice cream cones because I'm kind of like a big ice cream cone.
That's fair enough. And I get what you're saying about the beard. Some people might be turned off. It's not like you have a tattoo on your head that says Trump or a swastika or something like that. But some people can easily. Not yet. Okay. We'll see what happens in November.
Yeah, really.
Fair enough. So
wait, that's a good idea. That would actually get a lot of clicks, wouldn't it?
Well, you're going to turn off half the people, and you'll
so what? We get the other half. So
the other half will love you. Exactly right. So, what do you find to be the challenge when working? I mean, other than that they're stuck selling what they have to sell, are there other challenges when working with a more traditional investment advisor like a Merrill Lynch or a Wells Fargo, or the tons of other firms out there that helping people invest?
I guess it depends on who you talk to. There's a lot of great people that work for those companies, and they have, great intentions and great views on the market, and they have systems that they feel work really great. For me, it's not a solution because, again, that box that I kind of get stuck in working for them. There's payout structures, there's retirement benefits, there's all kinds of things. One of my big things is I hate non-competes. I hate non-disclosures. I think that's, as soon as you start to get into that area of the world, I want away from it as quick as possible. I want to be left alone. I want to be able to do what I want to do. And of course, we have to still follow all the rules, right? So there's a whole industry set of rules that we have to follow. But there's a level of having flexibility that says, man, that's really better for me as an individual. But it's not good for everybody. And that's why there's a lot of employees at all those other companies, and lots of employees. My company is a rounding error to Merrill Lynch. The size wise. I mean, it's like a little tiny thing. So it's more of a niche feel. It's a small stage, but it can be a really powerful tool too.
Got it. But even though you are a small player in a big world, wasn't your company just named in the top, I think, 200 financial advisory firms in the United States?
Yeah, whatever. That and a dollar will get you a cup of coffee, right? So, but it's like, you can't really pay attention to that stuff because data is data. But yeah, I guess it's like top 1%. But what does that really mean? Does that make me a good person? Does that make me a visionary? Does that make me us? I mean, really, it doesn't really do anything. It's just data.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even make you a great financial advisor. I mean, you could be ripping people off blind, but still have sold enough to get up there. It's kind of like being a top voice on LinkedIn. I'm a top voice for direct sales on LinkedIn, but all that means is I filled out three articles and they make you a top voice. So I get it.
Now I will say we thought it was cool when they when USA Today came out and said, "Hey, look, guys, you're in the top 1%." We're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then I told my business partner, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, neat." And then I talked to my marketing person, and they're like, "Holy crap, that's a great thing. So let's push that out to the public." I'm like, "All right, cool, let's
100%.
do it."
Look, from a marketing standpoint, yes, people like to know that they're dealing with the best, and certainly being in the top 200 in the entire United States, you can make that claim. We're among the best. Yeah. When it comes to prospecting, which is something my clients ask me about all the time, and I find is the biggest challenge for every salesperson I speak to, every coaching client that comes to me, every organization I walk into, they're just not speaking with enough prospects. Yeah. And I don't care how good someone is at selling. If you're not speaking with enough prospects, you can't close enough business. So what are your thoughts on prospecting for the advisors who work for your firm? What are they doing to find new prospects, and what maybe should they be doing that they're not?
Oh, I think the best way to prospect is just sit at home and just close your door and just be on the internet and look at Facebook and try to message people. I mean, don't even do that. Just don't do anything. And make sure you're just sit and wait and, put something out there maybe every once in a while, but no, honestly, it's just being authentic, and you have to be communicative. You can't sit in the house. Don't expect to put an ad online and people to call you. They're not going to do it. You have to get out there, make relationships. You have to find friends. You have to find your tribe. We're going to probably have another discussion about this in a second. I feel it coming, but It's just about activity at the end of the day, Jeff. I mean, you know that. You and I both know that.
I certainly do. And I found it interesting because one of the things I do, even though I know you, John, one of the things I do for anybody I'm going to interview is I go to their website, I go to their LinkedIn, and I look at their posts and I take questions from their posts. And when I went to yours this morning, I was in a panic for a moment because you have exactly one post on your LinkedIn feed. So clearly you're not using that to develop business.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because we do use LinkedIn extensively, but we use it through the back channels, through their advertising to look for new representatives across the country. Yeah, we do use LinkedIn extensively. We spend a lot of money on LinkedIn ads because the professionalism of someone that goes to LinkedIn to really develop a profile is going to shine through. We find that's very, very effective to bring a new talent to the firm, for sure.
Got it. So let's say that you were being a little facetious a moment ago when you said sit at home and do nothing. How do you find your tribe? I mean, are you talking about just getting out there and networking? I know a lot of financial advisors will buy you a steak dinner in return for listening to their pitch for an hour. What type of things should a financial advisor really be doing?
Affinity marketing, I think, is the best thing. And I use that really broadly. But if you are passionate about something, immerse yourself in that passion and connect with people that are passionate about the same thing. I don't know how to say it any simpler than that. Find what makes your stomach warm and happy and your heart full and immerse yourself in it. Now, I will say that if you're a salesperson and you're like really into shooting guns, I mean, I don't know, you got headphones on, you're not really able to connect very well with people. But bowling there's a great one. That's kind of you get a bowling alley full of people. Now you got to get out of your lane every once in a while and go talk to everybody else down the bowling alley, right? If you're into dog rescue, you're probably not going to generate a lot of customers if you're selling stuff because dogs don't typically buy too much. But it's just being around your passion and immersing yourself in your passion that connects you with other people that are in that same passion. That's where the conversation starts. It isn't about the product or the service or anything else. It's about the passion. Because if I have a passion about something, it's going to probably be like, I envision my passion lasting my whole life with an end game for that passion. Well, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do to get there so we can continue to enjoy our passion once we're retired or once we're done?
Yeah. Well, Michael Gates and I agree that we love
Michael,
that.
you got a beard too, dude. I love that. Nice. I like it.
Yes. See, we're going to talk about our shared passion.
He was part of our tribe, baby. He's right there. I love it. Nice.
Yeah, we're going to talk about our shared passion in a few minutes, but I do have a couple more questions. So you're right. And you and I do both like shooting guns, which I know is why you mentioned it. And it's not great for having a conversation because you are wearing headphones. You don't want to blow your ears out. But I had one of his favorite things was to take somebody to a ball game or a basketball game or something like that, which made me sick to my stomach. First of all, I'm not into sports. Yeah. And the thought of sitting there for 2 or 3 hours generating a conversation just didn't do it for me. But he loved doing that. But you're right. If you can find people, look, we all want to find that commonality because that engenders trust. So having some shared passion in advance of the relationship makes it much easier to have somebody. Oh yeah, this guy thinks like me. He likes the same band I like, or he likes the same sport, or whatever it is. And is there anything else? Because engaging with an investment advisor, it's a very personal relationship. I mean, when somebody says, "Hey, John, I want you to handle my money," they're saying, "I trust you. I trust you to get my kids into college, or for me to be able to pay it for my kids' college, or how can I retire without running out of money?" So, what should salespeople in general, and maybe specifically investment advisors, besides finding commonality, what can they do to gain a prospect's trust?
The trust is just about listening and asking the right questions. I mean, it's not anything you're going to present or give out or hand out to someone. It isn't. You can't do it in a business card or a data sheet or a handout or performance numbers. You have to dig into the person you're talking to. And as you've taught all of us for so long, active listening and communicating, finding your tribe, making sure you connect, and that you're getting to the person. You're delivering them the result, which is the life experience. It's not about the product. It's not about the service. This is about how do I get you from point A right now to point B where you want to go.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just, you said a little bit about basketball a second ago. I'm not a huge basketball fan. Matter of fact, when I was in high school, I was like 6'3" as a freshman. I was 6'3", and it's like I was in a little tiny high school in Zanesville, Ohio, called West Muskingum, and I'm going to call him out on this if you're listening, Coach. But so I tried out for the basketball team. They're like, "You'd be a great basketball player. You're so tall." I'm like, "Great." So there were 5 of us that tried out. That was it. There were, how many people were on a basketball team? You know that, right? 5.
That much I know. See, you made it.
No, I didn't. That's how bad I was at basketball. So like my point is that if you go to a basketball game with someone because a prospect, hey man, go to the hockey team, go to the basketball, go to the soccer, whatever, and you're not into it, you might go, but I'll tell you what, you're wasting your time, because that's going to show through on your face, on your everything that you don't communicate is going to show through. Think about that. You know, if you're trying to like, so I got invited to go to a couple years ago to the Ferrari Club here in Naples, Florida. So it's got this huge building. It's beautiful. Ferraris, every financial advisor is like, oh man, I got to go there because that's where all the money is, right? I show up, my wife, so I don't drive a fancy car, you know, just, I think we had a beat up pickup truck at the time, just a few years ago. I still have a pickup truck, but Libby, my wife, we went to this Ferrari thing and she's like, hey, can we park in the lot next door and then walk through the bushes and go in because and I'm like, what are we doing that for? So, you know, it's that same thing. You got to find your tribe. You got to find your people who you want to be around. You know, this is, if I show up at a doorstep, if I knock on someone's door, a lot of times looking like this saying, hey, look, want to talk to you about your money, right? It's probably not going to work too well. And that's okay. Sometimes I might get lucky and the guy opens the door, has a great big beard like me, and we're going to hit it right off. You know, I find like bearded guys and bearded women really dig me. Why is that, right? Because like, dude, check that out. I'm like, yeah, look at yours, chick, or whatever, dude, whatever you are, you know, doesn't matter. But that's a common theme and a commonality. We try to find that. Now, it's also, you know, how do we get the trust of somebody? You can't just be in financial. You got to immerse yourself in what you love. Immerse yourself in what you love. Immerse yourself, live it, love it, eat it, breathe it, drink it, because that's going to show through. Yeah, that's going to show through 100%.
And people can tell when you're genuine or not.
The radar is going to go off on people's brains. You know, if you're trying to bullcrap someone through a situation, you don't have to say anything. The body language is going to rat you out. You're done.
I was just going to say, if I invite somebody to a baseball game, it's not going to take them very long for them to figure out what's this guy doing here, because he's bored out of his mind.
Yeah,
of all the sports, baseball is like just the worst. It's like,
yeah, Jeff, there's no such thing as fourth base, I guess, right? I don't know. Whatever.
That's why I love you, John. One more question about sales, then we want to get to what we're both passionate about. Are you or are your advisors using AI in their practices? And if so, how do you recommend that salespeople today take advantage of artificial intelligence?
So I'm a little old school. We'll talk a little bit about AI. When I think of AI, I think of a soulless little robot. I don't know. Do I even have one? I don't have a robot on my table. Otherwise I'd hold it up. But I think of a soulless little robot that just doesn't really connect well. You know, you look at like AI images, you go to these ChatGPT, you can type up all this stuff. And if you really read it, if you really think about it, or you look at the picture that AI generates, you can tell right off the bat. If you got an eye, that's fake. That's the same radar that I'm talking about. So AI can be used for sales, I guess, but I think it might be more appropriate for the organization of salespeople. Calendarization, making sure things are on track and on schedule, you know, documents, you know, tasks that are not meant to connect with people. So I think AI is valuable, but it's used, and we use, I mean, all of us, we talk about AI today, but AI has really been around for a while. I mean, in different forms, right? So we're just now calling it all AI. AI is a computer-driven process, right? It's kind of like takes data, but that's how long we've been using computers.
Yep.
Well, algorithms.
The only thing, I mean, I'm fascinated by AI, and I think that as it continues to grow and evolve, it's going to become more and more useful. The only thing I'm really using it for right now for sales is when I'm helping clients develop email cadences. I let ChatGPT write them for me, but then I take them and I make them my own because
step in and put the humanity back into that daggone thing.
yes,
Don't just spit it out and expect it to work for you.
Yeah, just like the pictures, I can almost always tell when somebody's generated some content I'm like, that's a robot.
Oh, because that one hand has like 9 fingers on it, right? That's what it is. And that's what your AI email sounds like to me when I read it. So always be aware, if you're going to use it, you can generate a better thought process, but you've got to go in and refine it out better if you're going to communicate with another human.
Yep, exactly right. Okay, so as passionate as I am about selling, let's get to what I really want to speak with you about. Pink Floyd. Yes, sir. So you know I'm a lunatic on the grass when it comes to Floyd, and if you're not a Floyd fan, that was actually a Floyd reference. So why Pink Floyd for you? What made you decide to form a tribute band for this particular group? I mean, it could have been the Beatles, who I also adore, the Allman Brothers, or any one of a million other bands. Why Pink Floyd?
Wow. I mean, that's like, so when I was 8 years old, my mom was an opera singer. I don't know if I told you that before. She sang in the New York Metropolitan Opera House when she was like 14 years old, whatever. My grandfather was a singer. My aunt was a classical flautist. My uncle still plays bagpipes in Grand Central Station. He was actually in the last parade here. There's a video of him. I'll have to send it to you. He's like 89 years old. He was stumbling and everyone's cheering him on because he could barely make it through the streets, but he's still passionate about playing and he loves doing that. When I was 8 years old, my uncle felt sorry for me. And because he's like into Devo, and he was into this band called Pink Floyd, and he's like, hey, you got to take this album and listen to it. And he gave me this little record album. It was a white album and it had a brick wall on it. It was like this brick wall album. And I'm like, what is this? And as soon as I started listening to it, I'm like 8 years old. I had to listen to it in my closet. I had a Fisher Price record player. And it's hilarious. Literally like that white with the yellow turntable, whatever it was. I wore that album out in my closet with my headphones. My mom would never let us listen to that kind of music growing up. Now mom's our biggest fan. She wants to go everywhere. She comes to every single show. I never wanted to play Pink Floyd, even as a musician. As I got into music and I started playing saxophone and piano and guitar and that kind of stuff, I never wanted to play Pink Floyd. I never played Pink Floyd because I never wanted to ruin that. So as I moved to Florida back in 2010, and then I kind of quit music, and then I got introduced. I kind of got the bug to get back and start playing again. And I went to this little dive bar down south of town, and I saw these Facebook ads for this other local band. They're like advertising their Pink Floyd music that they're playing. I'm like, man, that would be kind of cool. And then I watched a video of their saxophone player. I'm like, that guy's not representing it the right way. And I'm like, I think I might be able to do better. So I ended up getting in with that band. And then it was like, oh my God, I'm not ruining the music. I'm actually able to present this music in a way that makes people feel. And that was my drug. Once I understood that it's okay to play the music because of the effect that you have on the people that you're playing it to, and how you make them feel in the places you take them to and the passion that they have in it too. That was it for me. There wasn't any other band. I mean, I'm a fan of all music, but there's no other band that moves me the way that Floyd does.
Yeah. And it's not like their music is easy. I mean, especially the early Beatles, it's 3 chord progressions. It's very easy to play, but Pink Floyd is incredibly complex music. And it's also not just progressive. It was also known as psychedelic rock, and closely associated with, the drug culture. Not that I would ever do that at a Pink Floyd concert, but I've heard many people would be smoking weed or doing LSD or something like that, or mushrooms. But you're right. It either speaks to you or it doesn't. And I know people who just, Pink Floyd, why would I listen to that? But yeah, it's one of those things that once it catches you, it's inside you, because it really does speak. Both the music itself and the lyrics, just incredible. Once you had the idea, how did the band come together, and how long did it take until you were ready to tour?
Well, I had the first iteration of the band that Jason, our bass player, and I were recruited into. And it was more of It was a good band. It was good, but it was more of like a blaze your own trail style of Pink Floyd rather than playing Floyd. Jason and I wanted something more, and COVID happened, and sometimes good things come out of bad situations. And that old band, we broke up a number of different pieces. Well, from the efforts that we had in the other band, there were other people in the area that were watching us that were like, wow, we think we're passionate too about that project. We're passionate about that music. What if we were to get together and do something? So then it was just connections after connection and the networking that we did for all those years. And it was making phone calls and it was getting Bob in on synthesizer, and Ray, our audio engineer / guitarist, who's also the audio engineer for the Moody Blues, John Lodge of the Moody Blues, Brendan McDonald, lead guitar, Bob, who's a retired scientist. I mean, just to be able to bring this cast of people together. We're all right here in Southwest Florida too, which is really, really crazy. But really it was just a series of events. It wasn't just one day that I woke up and I was like, hey, let's start a Pink Floyd band. It was a progression of events. It's all about sticky, right? So the more you do it, the more time you have into the project, the more you can develop the concept and the idea out. So this isn't something I just woke up and saying, hey, look, let's start this band so we can get signed by a agency out of Beverly Hills, which we are now. But this was really just it was all about the music itself. It was never about, let's get signed, let's play these huge venues, let's, go make this ungodly money every single night going to play the music of the band that we love the most. It was never about the money. It's always about the passion project.
Wow. And while you were just saying it, I don't think I realized at the moment, but The Wall was your first experience of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
So,
and my second experience, so growing up as a kid, I was always kind of a weirdo a little bit. We played Dungeons and Dragons, we had the whole thing going on, right? Gary Riggle, one of my good friends, who's now like a major beer manufacturer guy, whatever, he makes this amazing beer. We were in his car one night. I was like 13 years old at this point. And all of a sudden he's playing this music. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, I don't even understand this. And then I hear this thump, 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 thump. And it says, one of these days I'm going to come. And you know what I'm talking about, right? And I was like, what is that? He's like, that's Pink Floyd. I'm like, get out. I've never heard that before. And again, I'm 13. That was my first introduction to One of These Days off of Pink Floyd's album, Metal. Wow. And I was terrified, to be honest with you, when I first heard that, because I was just terrified when I first heard that song. Now I love it. It's amazing. This is part of me. But
there's some very scary stuff on there, and it's meant to be that way. The fascinating thing to me is, they were around a long time before they broke big with the Dark Side of the Moon. They had many albums, but Dark Side of the Moon really just made them, global phenomenons. That was really my first experience. Since then, I've gone back and heard, some of their previous music. And as you know, I reached out to you one time after a concert and I said, what's that song you guys played? I don't know. And it was from an album that I just didn't know, because to me, there are 4 main albums from Pink Floyd, and they are Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, The Wall, and Wish You Were Here. I think that's what most people who are fans know them for. And then there's all kinds of deep cuts and solo stuff. But amazing to me, because of those 4, The Wall is the last one they actually did. So there was some amazing music before you even discovered them.
Yeah. There's always tie-ins, and I don't know if you're going to ask this question or not, but if you are, we can delete it later, whatever. But as time went on with the band, and again, I'm enveloped in this passion project. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the visibility or the, oh my God, look, I'm in this amazing band, whatever. I'm just in it because I love to play the music. But what I've found is, and when I talked about affinity marketing and talking about finding your tribe, when we're playing on stage and we see 1,500, 2,000 people in this beautiful performing arts center, one day it clicked on me. I'm like, oh my God, this is our tribe. This is my tribe. Everybody in here is my tribe. And so the fascinating thing is Jason, our bass player, became securities licensed. Brendan, our lead guitar player, is now securities licensed. They're both into finance too. As an aside, it's not a game. They both like it. But now they're able to connect with the crowd and the audience and the tribe and get them to where they want to be financially down the road. So when you're thinking about passion project, you have to remember not to go after it just because you think it's a moneymaker. You have to be truly, honestly passionate about it. Let the chips fall how they may. If it opens up the door to be able to connect with people naturally, then that's just an extra win. But understand, if you hear my story, maybe you're in a passion project, but you never really thought of how to connect point A to point B, and you're a salesperson, you better darn well start thinking about how to do that.
Yeah, and I've expressed to you, so you know how I feel about it. When I'm hearing the music, and especially when I'm seeing you guys live, and there are other bands that I like. There's only one other that I think compares with you guys,
Yeah.
but I've seen a bunch of them. It's for me, it's taking me back to when I was 17 and 18 and sitting there in the audience and going nuts. It's almost it gives me that feeling that I don't have 50 years later as an almost retiree.
Dude, I've seen pictures on the internet of people that have Dark Side of the Moon tombstones. It's just, think about that. I mean, what have you ever really seen Beatles tombstones?
Not yet.
No, not even looked for it. But it's unbelievable to me how music and how passion can move people. Yeah, it's the same thing with cars. It's the same thing with basketball. It's the same thing with, so if you're into those things, immerse yourself into it. Make it a part of your business model if you're a salesperson.
Yeah, and that's the thing about music, especially. Yeah, sports and cars and all that stuff, but music, it touches your soul if it's done. Yeah, so it's huge. How did you find your first gig? So once you guys formed this band, how did you get your first gig?
With Floyd Nation, because I had the experience of the other band and I was running the finances and the money side of it for them, I understood how to navigate through performing arts centers and how to talk to venues and how to do the licensing and how to pay the royalties and all that other stuff. So for us, it was bringing our small group of lunatics, I guess, core fans together in a very small studio space is what we did our very first rollout. I think we only had like 70 or 80 people in the room. And we gave our very first performance to them. We were playing back in one room because there were two studios. So we were playing in the back studio and live streaming it to the front studio on a big screen. And they were immersed in sound and visuals, which was pretty amazing. That was our very, very first show. Our second one was right to Performing Arts Center, which we nearly sold out. So, and that's one where we didn't get a deal. Nobody came to us and said, "Hey, here's some money, come play." We literally rented the theater. We paid out thousands and thousands of dollars to rent this theater, to do the advertising, to do it all ourselves. So we sold the tickets ourselves. We paid our sales tax ourselves. We did all of it ourselves. And that's really what started to get the eyeballs of people on us.
Wow. And I first saw you at Sony Theater, right in Times Square, New York, which I think is 1,500, 2,000 seats, something like that. Yeah. How did you go from local stuff like 80 people showing up to filling up 1,500 or 3,000 seat auditoriums?
Well, just like any industry, music is filled with good old boy network. So you have to know people. There's people that are veterans in the industry that control theaters. They control ticketing. Think of the Ticketmaster crap that's going on right now, right? So you can't trailblaze very easily. Pearl Jam tried to do it. If you take a look at their band, it didn't work out very well back when they were butting heads with Ticketmaster and stuff. But you have to know people. You have to be connected with people. So after our second performance that we did as Floyd Nation, we were actually signed by an agency. I was out there actively looking for someone to help us get signed. It didn't just come to us. I wasn't just sitting in my room waiting it to come. You know what? You can't just wait. You have to go out there and beat on doors and make phone calls and make friends. And I was lucky enough to run into one guy who made an introduction to another guy. And we were signed after our second show by an agency out of New Jersey. We've since moved on. We were just recently signed by another agency out of California. But without that agency, without that booking agent who has all the relationships already, we could never get into the doors that we're into right now. It's a team effort. Don't expect that stuff is just going to fall in your lap. You've got to give up revenue. You've got to give up money. You've got to give up a little bit of control to be able to grow. You just have to at some point in time.
Right.
So
And you
that
just
was
signed with
really
a new
cool.
agency, right, out in California, and they
Yeah,
represent some fairly well-known people. Yes.
yeah, Paradise Artists, Bad Company. If you look at their roster, it goes Flock of Seagulls, Floyd Nation, and Foghat in that order, which alphabetically, which I think is super, super cool. But they do Journey and Foreigner, the guys from Journey and Foreigner in
Wow.
Asia, and a bunch of other bands as well. But yeah,
Big time.
they believe in us too, so I'm pretty excited about that relationship.
Got it. One of the things that I find fascinating is that, well, all bands have a distinct sound, but especially Pink Floyd, and it's not just a bunch of guys playing one guitar or one set of drums. How do you so faithfully recreate the sound of a band that is iconic like that?
It's hundreds of hours of dedication and research and timing and logistics. It's not just like you can go start playing in a garage. It's a very complex between the soundscapes and the design. It's even so complex that beyond the music, like the timing, you have to have the musicianship. You have to have the person who's dedicated to the craft. There's not a single person in our band that isn't totally in love with Floyd. That's the key to make the organization work, is the passion that everybody has for the project. It's crazy. It's like, I'm looking at my screen here on my right hand side. I would show it, but I have logos up of a logo redesign and a whole different feel that we're going to start presenting right now. So even though I'm working day to day, we're on the StreamYard, I always have my passion project on my side monitors waiting whenever I get a break from doing my day to day, because I'm literally we're running two businesses at one time, but I'm immersed in it all the time. It surrounds me in my life.
My question was really about more than the dedication, which I know all you guys have, the passion, and playing guitar since I'm 10. It took me a long time to realize that it's not just about the music. It's, if you want to sound like Pink Floyd, you got to be playing the same type of instruments, don't you? I mean, isn't it? You got to have the Strat that Gilmore was playing, and the amplifiers. Doesn't all that get involved in recreating the sound besides your musical technique?
100%. And I'm not going to throw out other bands, like I'm not going to name names, of other Pink Floyd tribute bands. There's one in Britain that is out there. There's one like in Australia that's out there. So what I find from a lot of tribute bands, and the other reason I'm really excited about this one, there's a feel. So you can be a studio musician, i.e. AI, that plays the notes and they play it well. And it has a great cadence to it and a great pace to it. And it's organized very well and it's structured very well. But then you have the humanity side of music, which is the feel and the soul and the passion and the oomph of what you're playing, and you're connecting with the audience on a level that makes your prospect cry. Where else can you do that? The thing is that with music, you can have the right instrument, you can have the right education, you can have everything. But if you don't have the soul, you're never going to connect. You're never going to connect. And that isn't just music. That's everything. You're selling a car. You're selling, you're a pastry chef. If your soul is just poured into it and you're good and you have all the right ingredients, it's going to be magic. And that restaurant, right? That one restaurant that you think about when you think like, man, I want to go back there. Why? Well, have you ever talked to the chefs in the kitchen? It's the soul. It's that passion.
Yeah, it's what your bass player, who I also love, calls emoting. You can play the notes, but if you're not emoting, you're not going to sound the same. And it takes a long time to get there. And I love the way we keep calling it a passion project. I'm the same with stand-up comedy. I'm not doing it for money. When I get paid, it's almost like the icing on the cake. It's just that I love doing that, and I'm passionate about it. I want to talk about the financials of a tribute band, because I'm fascinated by I've never understood, how bands make money, and especially a tribute band. So, is this a way to get rich?
What's your definition of rich?
FU money? Millions and millions?
No. No, not at all. Everyone's definition of being rich is a different thing. There's people in music that will go from bar to bar every night, and they pay more money in gas than they actually make every night, but they're still wealthy. You know what I'm
Because they're
saying?
doing what, yeah, of course.
They're
And there's,
doing what they
I know
say.
tons of comedians the same way that are doing way more than they're out every single night,
Yeah.
going to 2 bars and one to another, and they don't care about the money. They're just passionate, and it makes them better and better and better every time they do it. But they're doing it because they love it.
So there's also a difference between a normal band and then a band like we've put together. It's in the 1% category. It really does. You start to get to that, I'll call it Olympian level, to where it's everything's a monumental effort. Nothing comes easy for it. Can everybody make a decent wage to get a house and have a retirement account and not really worry about the day-to-day expenses? Yeah, you can do that in a tribute band. Are you going to be a millionaire? Probably not. Unless you get some side deal and you're thinking outside the box, and you really start going strong on social media with TikTok and Instagram, and you come up with other products and you're doing other things. Could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen. I mean, the sky's the limit. What can come out of a project where you're connecting to so many thousands of people? What if you decide you want to get your Series 65 like all of our representatives had, and all of a sudden you connect with everybody in the audience? Did the tribute band make you rich? Well, it could. It could. So it's really about, it's maybe not the project itself or the band that's going to do it, but it's the connections that we make out of it. It's the relationships that we make out of it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's what drives all of us.
Yeah. Well, I guess rich was the wrong question. What I'm really was asking is what you just answered. Can you be in a great tribute band and make enough money to live the lifestyle you want, have a house and a car and all that thing, and not worry about the bills and a retirement?
If it's structured the right way, yes. Yeah.
And of course, you have to tour enough. Like, I know you guys aren't on the road 7 days a week, every week of the year yet.
No, we won't be. We won't be either. So that's not our business model. There's still a very structured approach to put together a business plan. And everyone's definition of business plan is different, right? Everyone has a different definition, but you have to have some sort of a plan. You just can't blindly throw at it. We have logistics. If you look at from what we've put together, we have a 15-page organizational document that lists every single job description in our organization, from production manager to tour manager to merchandising to advertising to finance to logistics to music, you name it. It's like 15 pages long. How are we able to do that? Well, my background, but really Bob's background in corporate structure, you have to have structure to be able to do this the right way.
Amazing.
And it's a lot more complex than just going out and playing music.
I would, yeah. So it's not just a bunch of guys with guitars and drums and some ladies in tight black dresses who are singing, getting together and playing. There's a lot of work that goes into this.
We have a semi truck that all of our gear goes out on a semi truck, and we're full. A 53-foot. Have you ever been like standing in the back of a 53-foot truck? Have you been in one of those rigs?
I've seen them outside the concerts. Yes.
Our rig is full from front to back, within a foot of the back, with gear that we haul like the Barnum and Bailey circus from show to show. And it's every night. And everyone thinks like, oh, the band is like, you're going to have this blast. It's like, we're going to be drinking and we're going to be partying. We're going to be going. No, dude, you get there at like noon because you're exhausted from the night before. And you get there at noon at the venue. You start setting up. You sound check by 3. At 4 o'clock is VIP doors. 5 o'clock, you get a little bit of a break. Dinner comes at 5:30. 6 o'clock, doors open. 7 o'clock, the show starts. You're out of there by maybe 11. And then you're driving 2 hours to the hotel that's halfway in between the next show. You're up at 8 to get breakfast, and it starts all over again. There is no time when you're on the road to be able to do what a lot of people think it is about a band like this.
And so that's something I wanted to ask you about also. Before I do that, though, someone who we both know, my favorite bass player and yours, Jason Collins, says you have to connect with people who come to see you play genuinely. If you are able to spot a fake person approaching you, then your audience will see if you're not genuine. Be genuine. 100%.
Genuine, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign me up. I love you, Jason Collins.
When you are up there playing, so I know you don't tour every night yet,
Yeah.
I know you said you never will, but there are bands like Australian Pink Floyd, who you didn't want to mention, and Brit Floyd, who are constantly touring, constantly performing. I'm curious, because I know how it is for me with comedy, but you're playing the same music every night. I mean, Brendan, your lead guitarist, might put in a few different notes, but you guys faithfully recreate the experience of a Pink Floyd concert. It's the actual sound. You guys are pretty much to the note.
Yeah.
Does it get boring doing that? I mean, do you ever sit there and go, gee, I really would like to do a different sax solo, except the people are expecting X? Because I know for me, when I would see Pink Floyd, or a better example is Led Zeppelin. You go to see Led Zeppelin, and it didn't sound the same as the album, and I want it to sound like the album.
Right.
So does it get boring for you?
For me, it doesn't, because I love the history of the music so much. I want to hear it recreated every single night. For some of our musicians in the band, it's a real challenge because they are creative people, songwriters. They write their own music. They write their own lyrics. They want to expand their horizon a little bit, if you will. So there's a balance inside of the band. And it's been a while since you've seen us with our new iteration. But what we've been doing is sliding in sections where we're playing the music exact note for note with all that feel and that passion, but then we spread our wings a little bit, and we stay true to what Floyd would have done and how it would have sounded, could have sounded. And the audience tends to love that, because you're showing the audience, not only can we play the actual music note for note, but then we're going to be coming out and blowing your brains out with this a little bit of a solo section or a little bit of a vibe that it's just incredible. Yeah, to watch. It's incredible to watch. So we're going to be incorporating that a little bit more. Ray, after the last show that we just did, the guy does the audio for John Lodge of the Moody Blues. He's one of the biggest fans of the band, obviously, and a guitar player. He said, we're slowly finding our way. We're slowly developing who we are in this genre. And maybe he called it a jam band even, but it is, but it isn't. We can certainly jam with the best of them, but we can also deliver exactly what the audiences want, which is exactly what they remember when they were 17 years old.
Yeah, and I don't go to a Floyd Nation or any other tribute band concert to see you guys jamming. I want to see. Yeah. I'm going because I want to see Pink Floyd. I have zero problem, and I actually like it when you do throw in a little extra.
A little extra, but not much. Just a little.
Like
little
at the
flavor.
Beginning of Run Like Hell, when the guys are going back and forth.
Yeah.
That's not how it is on the album. And
exactly.
Pink Floyd used to do that in concert too. But yeah, that makes it extra special. And, the anticipation of, okay, when are they going to actually break into it? It's monumental. At a Floyd Nation show, as was true with the original band, it's not just about the music. The original band used to tour with a huge round screen that they were projecting video, and the light show was always an amazing part of the Pink Floyd concert experience. It was always incredible. Tell us a little bit about the non-music part of the show, and what does it take to create that?
So we, for a long time, and I think the last time you saw us, we had a different light show, Jeff. And what we've done since then, we put Keith, our audio engineer, went out and advertised for a new lighting designer. We wanted a new plan. We wanted something that synced more with the music. We ended up getting, I think, over 100 resumes in just a few days. And we were getting resumes from designers that wanted to work with us, from like Metallica and, all these huge all these crazy bands. It's like, this is insane that our little ding dong band is actually getting people. We ended up picking this kid, 20 years old, named Carter from Kentucky. 20 years old, electrical engineering student, really no touring experience, totally green. Never developed his own show before, but we picked him because of some award that he won earlier this year. I saw it and like, man, this is the kid we got to talk to. And so he came in, and he doesn't really know Pink Floyd, but he knows his craft. And he has put together a phenomenal light show for us that we're going to continue to develop and do. And really what it was about was finding the right person for the right job. We've never really had the right person for the right job, in my opinion. I believe we're getting closer to that point right now. We'll always be on the search for it. But what goes on behind the scenes to do the lasers and the lighting, and not only licensing and production and design and thought process and concept, There's a whole genre that you have to mesh with. What Pink Floyd did. How do we bring that feel? How do we bring that feel of Floyd into our show?
And that was always a huge part, the laser lights and everything, and explosions and pyrotechnics. It was unbelievable.
But also, how do we do it within budget so we can continue to do this and present our craft to people and not get to the point? I know of a couple of big bands out there in this genre that are literally teetering on the edge. Like I was told by one production manager, one flat tire away from going in the red any given night. That's no way to live. Sure. It's just no way to live. So when Pink Floyd toured with their big production back in the 70s and 80s and especially 90s, look up the articles about it, how much money they were losing, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Well, they were also selling records, and that was their thing. So in order to get the production like that, you don't expect to make anything, expect to shell out money just for exposure. That's just what it is today. I don't ever want to get to the point to where our production consumes so much that everybody in the band can't make it for their families. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Got it.
And you think about it, Pink Floyd was doing it on such a big scale. How could you ever replicate that faithfully?
I don't know.
Even the bands out there that are trying to do it, they have like scaled down versions. It's like a mini set of it. To me, I'm like, look, find another way to do it. Find a different way to connect with people, because you can't possibly replicate this $1 million $100 million production. This huge band that you can't replicate that at all. So
building the wall. I mean, on stage, which for those of us who were fortunate enough to see it was amazing.
There's a couple bands out there that try to do that, but they do it on such a small scale. You're like, this is like high school. You can't do that. So there's all these fine balances that you have to run inside this music and how you present it. Just like anything we do with sales, even, it's at what point are we getting too big and we're losing efficiency because we're trying to scale too much?
Yep. John, from the band's perspective, what goes into making it a great show? What qualifies a great show? I'm asking. I'll give you a quick example. So another band that I love is the Fab Four. They're a Beatles tribute band with some amazing, world-class musicians in it. I once attended a Fab Four concert, and they had spotlights facing at the audience the entire show. And I just happened to be sitting in a seat where I was blinded for most of the show. The music was still great, but I couldn't enjoy the concert. So from the band's perspective, what do you think goes into making a show enjoyable for the obviously the music, but what else?
It's the connection. It's really the connection. It's how do we bring out the emotion in everybody that's sitting in the audience? How do we connect with people in a way that they don't feel like they're just viewing a performance, that they're actually participating in it? And you got to think about that. It's no different than sales, Jeff. If you're sitting there talking to me about what you do for a living so much, I'm just watching you just like I would watching a TV show, and I have no interaction to it, and I'm not vested in that. But as soon as you get me to clap my hands, I mean, think about Amway. Remember that back in the day? You ever go to an Amway convention?
I did.
They're great. It's amazing. We're all clapping our hands. We're all cheering. We're all participating in that because we all feel it. And that really, to me, is the key when we're playing on stage, is the connection that we can make before, during, and after the show with everybody that comes and sees us.
And you guys are great with that, because you will meet with people. You'll actually talk to people beforehand. You come out into the audience during the show, and afterwards you're standing there. You stick around as long as it takes to shake everybody's hand and take selfies. And
do you know what the key is? Do you know what the key is? That though,
tell me.
You really have to like it. You really have to love doing that, because if you show up fake in the audience, they're going to see it.
Yep.
So you really, really, really have to do. What did Jason say? Your great show.
Jason says a great show for me is when the audience is right in step with the band. The energy flows back and forth from the stage to the audience and back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and at your shows, a lot of the times we're on our feet and we're singing along with you, and run. It's just astounding. We're quickly running out of time. I want to talk about ticket prices. Ticket prices, as far as I'm concerned, are just insane. They're out of control.
Yeah, they are totally.
Tickets for popular bands today can cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars. I wanted to go see Taylor Swift's concert. Not that I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I like a few of her initial songs, and she's an amazing talent. But that show, I saw enough video of it. Look, just incredible. I'm not spending $1,500 and $2,000 to see Taylor Swift. I mean, if someone came back from the dead and the band and Roger and David could afford, I'd pay thousands of dollars to see that. If John and George came back from the dead, I'd pay thousands of dollars to see the Beatles. But for those of you who are listening later on when this gets converted to a podcast, you won't be able to see this. But what I'm showing you is a ticket from 1977, July 3rd, when I sat in the 6th row orchestra at Madison Square Garden to see Pink Floyd and paid $10.50. Boy, oh boy, is that the good old days. You keep your tickets extremely reasonable. I just got tickets to see the band in New Jersey in October. Pink Floyd fans in the tri-state area, you can still get tickets. What is it? Performing Arts Center in Inglewood, is that it?
I don't even know. I just show up.
I paid just $69 to sit in the 4th row center. How do you keep it so reasonable and still cover your costs and make sure you're not going into into the red?
Some people don't think that's reasonable at all, but that just ends up being the metric that works for the audience and for us and for the venue and all the staff and all the trucking and all the production that goes along with it. So we have a concept. I've got a concept I've been rolling around here that we want to do a show in a stadium that is based on 1980 prices, like literally $15 a ticket. So I think as the economy starts to ebb and flow, we're always aware from a pricing metric that we're going to have to adjust to the pricing metric of the economy as well. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different than a lot of the other bands that are out there who are so focused on the finance side of it. I would love to get the ticket prices down, but that would require us to scale the audiences much larger.
Gotcha.
That could actually happen for us in the near future.
Got it. I mean, personally, for me, Jason said it's the Bergen Pacific Arts Center in Englewood, New Jersey.
Bergen,
thank you, Jason.
There you go.
Yeah. Personally, I mean, $69. I'm thrilled to pay that because same thing with Broadway shows. I mean, to take a family of 4 to see a Broadway show, it's $1,000 if you want great seats.
Well, no one really understands as well, like how much it costs to put on a production. You think a band's just going to roll in there and they're going to have an audience of 1,600 people and they're going to walk away with 80 grand. We sold $85,000 in tickets to one of our last shows in one night. $85,000 in tickets, and they're like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." I'm like, the net is what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's semi truck that you have to pay for and all the equipment and insurance, I'm sure, and I don't know what goes into it.
The venue alone, over $50,000 for the night. Over. Just for the venue.
That you have to pay them.
Yes, out of that money. So, this is where it's repetitive, it's building the base, it's building the fans, it's being persistent about it, and keeping your production costs and numbers low. And that's really what the goal is here.
Got it. We're almost out of time, but I'm wondering, do you have any good on the road stories, or has anything in particular gone terribly wrong during a show?
Wow, there was one show that we did where we were all terrified. We get ready, we went through sound check, everything is cool, and then we're getting ready for the show, and then all of a sudden, nothing. There's no communication from all of our microphones, from our in-ear systems, to the main board, to the front of house, nothing. And we were able to finally pull it off by some of our musicians coming up, Brendan and Ray, doing guitar work or doing some intro work to where we could get all the systems rebooted again. But it's amazing to me how you can be so dependent on one system. Even with redundancy, if one system goes out and you lose a second one, you're done for the night. So the terrifying one. The other one from the road is walking out of the gas station, and one of the guys slides a bunch of Twinkies down the antenna pole on the van, which I thought was kind of funny. So there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in the band. Yeah.
It's funny you say that about redundancies. I produce one comedy show a month, just one, and I bring all the equipment, microphone and sound system and all that stuff. And recently I was thinking, what the hell happens if my mic breaks? I'm screwed. So I actually just bought a second mic that I can bring with me every
That's
time.
exactly right. You just get a megaphone at that point. That'd even be better. Yeah.
Well, I've got a big mouth, so that works well. But
right.
Part of the thing about a comedy show is you want to see the guy holding the mic. Typically,
I love it.
It's part of the experience. And Jason says that Brendan ate a Twinkie off that.
Yeah, he actually ate a Twinkie off of it. Yeah. So I don't forget that. I'm like, what did you do?
I got it. Well, John, thank you so much. I'm impressed with you beyond belief. I'm impressed with the band and everything you do. And I'm honored to consider you a friend. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us and sharing your brilliance so generously. And I can't wait to see the band again in October, and see everything that's changed and be singing along with you guys. And
hey, stay passionate, stay engaged, stay authentic, and connect with people who love what you do. And work that into your entire life, and it's going to free you. It's going to give you freedom.
I'm with you, my friend. And because this is a sales podcast, I'll bring you back and end as I always do, my friends. Thank you for listening to this. And remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales and Pink Floyd happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.